Welcome to the Subjective Professor podcast, where we reject coercion and hypocrisy. This episode, we're going to talk about a short interview clip that I saw with Nicole Shanahan. So, if you know less than me, then you may not know that RFK Jr.'s running mate for vice president is Nicole Shanahan. I know very little about her except other than her name. I didn't even know what she looks like until I saw that little video clip this morning. And she was discussing the choice or the possibility of RFK Jr. dropping out and throwing their lot in with the Trump crowd. And the primary reason is to prevent Kamala Harris from becoming president. So right now things are getting so hairy that that becomes a important enough issue that they're considering it. Whether they do it or not, I really don't know. I doubt it, only because it seems to me their personalities, RFK's personality is such that he wouldn't do it. Also, one might consider too that the 5% or so that they're polling, right, that the polls indicate that they're getting, where those votes are coming from. Is it just simply people who are just disgusted by the two choices that they had, even though one of them has been swapped out, the two choices they have, and so they weren't going to vote at all? Or are these people who jumped ship from the Republican or the Democratic voting body? It's tough. It's a tough call. Um, and keep in mind, especially if you consider people who weren't going to vote, now you're getting them to vote, and it's 5%. I get why they want to try to achieve a 5%. That is RFK, because what it does is it allows you to get funding for the next election, for the next cycle. So to step back a little bit, the Republicans and the Democrats rigged the system in such a way that the possibility of there being a third party for people to consider is very, very low. In other words, the way the voting is set up, ballot access, campaigning, campaign funds, all of this stuff, the way it's set up, it naturally favors Republicans and Democrats. If you don't get 5% of the vote in the general election, you're not even considered to be on the same stage as the Republican and Democratic candidate when it comes to a presidential debate. And so the goal for the Libertarian Party for a very long time was to try to get that 5%. But as I've mentioned before in previous episodes, there's just so much infighting within the Libertarian Party that pulling that off might be a little while. And so, from what I glean between the lines, the Libertarian Party, in the meantime, under McCardle, has taken the strategy of trying to influence one of the two parties that are probably going to take office, one of the two which is going to take office in November or win the election in November. But 5% for the Libertarian Party was sort of this may as well be on Saturn. I think 1%, maybe possibly over 1%, close to 2% was the highest that they ever got. But, getting 5%, that would require a tremendous amount of unity on the Libertarian Party, which they do not have right now. Even getting their nominee selected was very interesting. It wasn't clean in the way that most people would imagine selecting a candidate would be, especially with what's at stake. So, in the interview that Nicole Shanahan gave, just listening, her listening to what Harris and Walz are proposing, is it really that important? Like, is the priority right now just keeping her out of office? I mean, considering everything that they can do to ensure that they win the election, in spite of the fact that she hasn't given any interviews. She's just a total wreck when it comes to her unscripted remarks that she makes, and the rumors that are going around about her alcohol abuse, etc. But so that's what they're trying to basically consider. Is it would it be better for the country if they just threw in their lot with Trump, or continue to push for 5%? Uh, at this point, Harris is incredibly a nightmare. But that might be the intent, right? That might be what they're going for, that nothing they say makes any sense. It's clearly a lie for anyone who cares. I mean, who actually listens. And that might be the secret. No one actually listens. They just, just like back in the day when you were part of the live studio audience when they were taping a show, a sign would come on, say, time to applaud, time to cheer, time to laugh, time to go woo, and they stopped doing that. And when there was no live audience, they would just have laugh tracks, right? So they would just insert, um, you know, the response that should be there, at least that what they think should be there. Is it that the Harris Walz campaign are saying the absurd things that they're saying, and you know, uh, like making illegal immigration even bigger? Is it because they know that everything is falling apart faster than they could have predicted? Is it because they know they can cheat and it doesn't really matter? No one will really care. Even if there was an investigation, it will take too long, and it'll be forgotten. So they're immune. Maybe that's why they're just so insane with the things that they're saying and they're doing. But imagine if RFK, and I've mentioned this before, if RFK did drop out of the race, and instead of just losing for some future hope, maybe they'll get 5%. But if they drop out, and from my understanding, when Trump called RFK, he offered him a cabinet position. What if he gave him, health secretary? So now he was in charge of all the health policies. So no more lockdowns, no more masks, no more, monkeypox talk, but legitimate healthcare information with which people who are living in the country can then make the choices that they want. I mean, can you imagine that? That alone would be huge. Trump would tap RFK, not a Freudian slip, by the way, but to tap RFK as a health secretary, and then he gets to do whatever he wants. He would probably be able to achieve much more of his dream of his lifelong work in that way. I mean, if that's really what he wanted. And then he already has Musk, who tacitly agreed that he would be the bureaucracy cutter if Trump asked him, in the same way that he basically shed, was it 80% of the staff of Twitter? He could shed 80% of the bureaucracy in Washington, D.C. How awesome would that be? And then you get someone like Colonel McGregor as Secretary of Defense or head of the State Department instead of Lloyd Austin and Blinken and all these other people. And then imagine, I'm just throwing this name out there because he already said that he would refuse if Trump asked him, but Corey DeAngelis, if he was in charge of the Department of Education or in charge of seeing the destruction of the Department of Education, that would be so awesome. Corey DeAngelis, if you haven't heard of his name, you really should follow him on X. But he's all about school choice. And yeah, I heard about him a long time ago, I think, because his name was always familiar. And once I got on X, I immediately started seeing his posts. And it's all about school choice and bringing down the American Federation of Teachers and just all of this corrupt educational system. So that's just four names right off the bat. Can you imagine what kind of cabinet that Trump could put together if he actually just listened, if he listened to the libertarian leaning wing of the Republican Party, of the Libertarian Party itself? I mean, we would be able to maybe head off some of the pain that is coming. It's unavoidable. It's coming, but that would be awesome. Which brings me to this idea of the big picture, right? To go from to where I would love the United States to be, which is an extremely Switzerland-like government where most people don't even really care what's happening in government. They don't affect you directly unless your local provincial government approves, right? And to be totally defunded so that if they propose to do something, they would have to directly fund it, right? They couldn't inflate the currency anymore to pay for all these idiot programs, but rather you have to raise taxes on everybody to be able to pull off the things that they want to today. Imagine, that would be the goal, but you can't really do it now. People are just not ready, right? As the saying goes, they're still plugged into the matrix. They are not ready to wake up. And so you got to do this incrementally. When I used to teach at university, some of my students who liked a lot of what I was saying, and they could catch glimpses of what I was describing and what I was depicting, but they would say, "Yeah, how are we going to get there? You can't just eradicate government today." And I said, "Yeah, theoretically speaking, that's my goal, to just get rid of government, most of 99% of government, just get rid of it. But you can't get there from here. It's not going to happen overnight. So what you do is you have to do it incrementally. How big those steps would be determined by how much you can get away with. But I would be satisfied with just a change in the direction. I mean, the direction that we're headed right now is ever increasing government debt, right? And a crisis, and bringing us closer to war if we haven't already started World War III. That's the direction that we're on. Imagine if we just reverse the course. So instead of getting closer to all these catastrophic events, we're moving away, right? So the first thing to do is to withdraw all the troops, just bring them all home and let everyone have to fend for themselves. You have 2 years, whatever, but just to do that, that de-escalate all of the tensions and all of the potential of violence. That's what I would always try to say. You got to look at the big picture, where you want to go and how are we going to get there given our situation right now. Because right now we're on the misery spiral. People call it the death spiral, where we're in a situation, people come up with an explanation and the solution makes things worse, right? We're on a misery spiral, we're on a death spiral where things are just getting worse and worse. But if we change the direction and people start getting that sense or a taste of how better things could be, how much better things could be, then we can reverse the course. And hopefully the momentum, especially given the possible bureaucratic cutting that with just the four names I just mentioned, with that momentum and people seeing how much better life is, then we could seriously continue on that path to something truly amazing. So as I see it, I can't see the big picture of the Democratic Party. It's just I can't see. None of it makes any sense, right? Where is the value? What is the benefit of plundering your own country? What is the value? What is the benefit to even the people in power of throwing it all into chaos? What's the value of impoverishing everybody and then bringing everyone to the brink of starvation with the disruption of the supply problems, right? What is the benefit of eradicating safety, Second Amendment type stuff, and imprisoning people who complain, as they're doing in the UK? Or maybe that's just simply what they want us to see, that this is not really what's happening in England. This is not the actual problem here in the United States. Maybe they are just pumping and promoting all of these stories of how the government is paying airline companies to fly illegal immigrants to all the various cities all over the country. But again, the question is, for what? To what end? what could be achieved by carrying out these plans. I cannot make sense of it, right? Because even the politicians have to eat. Even the politicians have to go from point A to point B. If it is no longer safe for them, if they can no longer get food, I mean, if the people get food, who are they going to rely on? Where is their power going to come from? None of that, has, maybe I'm just too naive. Maybe there's just too much of the world I don't understand. But if power is derived from the people you rule over, where is the logic? What is the sense of just crippling them? It doesn't make any sense at all to me. On top of that, the professional protesters that we see today. Now, I believe that the elements of BLM and Antifa, I think they have a lot of funding from the government, from the state. That a lot of people who participate in that kind of stuff, they do it professionally. In other words, they show up. There's a big protest happening. They get money to drive out, fly out, bus out, ride the train out to wherever it is. They're put up in nice hotels. And then they protest as if it was spontaneous, as if it's a grassroots kind of thing, as if all of these people are local. They are not. So if the Democratic Party, or maybe it's the deep state, I don't know, they paid for all of this, I don't understand how they're protesting the DNC in Chicago right now. Or maybe that's just pretend as well. Like they're not real, they're protesting, there's some violent incidents, but it's not nearly as violent if they were really trying, like if they were really serious about, taking down the fences or something like that. Like I saw them, it looked like they were just pretending to try to take down the fence. But what if they actually, so maybe that's the protest in Chicago is for show, for optics, to make it seem like people are against the Democratic Party, but in reality, they're still going to win, right? Uh, I don't know. It just seems I raised the question because it seems like the protesters aren't really trying that hard. And then finally, as part of the big picture, why doesn't the idea of freedom take a stronger hold? The idea of when I was in class, as soon as I started talking about freedom and the potential of freedom, that all you have to do is pay for what it is that you want. I mean, there was nary a soul, right? There were a couple of people would always complain, but they never paid attention. And so every once in a while, they'll hear something, and all of a sudden they wake up and they start spouting out all this scripted rhetoric, and no one else in class is going to help them because they understand that it's a distraction. They haven't been paying attention, and they want to talk about all of this, the potential of freedom, right? The hope that freedom offers, and they get kind of disgusted at the other students, right? So that's what you can do in the classroom. Like if you just get students to taste, just get a whiff of freedom, I mean, they want more. So why is it so hard for the idea of freedom to take hold in the general society? And it might be because they're lazy, right? They don't care that there's something better out there, because it would also require them to have to work. And so all they want to do is be the professional protester, the professional complainer, the professional person who keeps writing the scripts for all the people who want to complain. The idea maker of people who complain. Maybe that's all they want, and they want everyone else to pay for it, right? And so all of their political activism is essentially, how do I get other people to pay for my lifestyle so I never have to put in an honest day's work producing something that actually has any kind of value? But that whole mindset is based on a lack of understanding of where anything comes from, where products come from, where even money comes from, right? At this point, because of the whole MMT, Keynesian economics, they believe you can print money and there are no negative consequences as a result. Well, it's a wild ride, right? My wife and I, we listen to mostly different people, different podcasts throughout the day. And then, we get together and we swap notes. We exchange, oh, what did you hear? Well, and I'll say what I heard. And, maybe it's an efficiency of information sharing. We get to listen to a lot more podcasts than if one person was doing it. But we still can't see the big picture. Like we can kind of see what smaller groups of people are trying for, but to what end? I always try to look at the big picture to get a general sense of what's going on, just to make sense of what's going on, but I can't see the big picture. Maybe there isn't a big picture. Maybe these are all sociopaths and psychopaths, and they do it just for the sake of doing things. I don't know. But for me, it's always about the big picture, and that's what I'm struggling with. I can't see it. In the meantime, I continue to prepare for the worst case scenario, while hoping for the best. And hopefully that's what you're doing as well, doing anything and everything you can to protect and prepare the people that you care about the most, while hoping for the best. And so that's it for today. Remember, I'm also on Spotify, all those other podcasting sites. Like, subscribe, share, whatever. I'll talk to you next time.